I'd like to call the Monday, June 27th Board of Education meeting to order. Ask for all present, please rise for the pledge. Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We've got 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. Approval of the minutes from May 23rd, approval of the minutes from June 8th, and the statement of receipts and expenditures for the month of May. A motion to approve the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed, and it passes. On to the superintendent's report. Mr. Nelson.
Yes, thank you. To get us started, I've asked Mr. Moore to come up and give us an update on the spring sports season and some of the accolades of our student athletes, both in athletics and also in academics. So he will cover number 1 and number 2 for us.
Thank you. Good evening. It was a very successful spring for our student athletes. Just some of the accomplishments in track and field. Our boys team was the regional team champion. We had 20 athletes across both genders advance to the state meet in 10 different events. Grace Wieselman qualified in the high jump, Brianna Mersch in the shot put, Josie Gosser in the long jump. The girls 4x100 relay of Ava Wilmans, Natalie Manuel, Grace Wieselman, and Gwen Grumley placed 3rd overall, so they got recognized on the podium in lacrosse. Girls 4x2 relay, Ava Wilmans, Natalie Manuel, Grace Wieselman, and Gwen Grumley. And the girls 4x400 relay of Ava Wilmans, Josie Gerke, Gwen Grumley, and Maddie Willie. On the boys' side, Chris Calise qualified in the 400 meters. The boys 4x100 relay team of Zach Schmidt, Jacob Gerke, Matt Sugar, and Kiamante Cook. The boys 4x200 relay of Zach Schmidt, Jacob Gerke, Matt Sugar, and Kiamante Cook took 4th place overall, so once again recognized on the podium. And the boys 4x400 relay of Matt Sugar, Chris Calise, Taylor Holmes, and Kiamante Cook all did a great job in lacrosse, and our high school was really well represented. Baseball all-conference nominees, 2nd team All-North Shore Conference, Nick Kolker at pitcher, Carson Faust as an infielder, Bennett Hildebrand as an outfielder, Mason Lemke as in the outfield, and Hunter Schmidt was recognized 2nd team North Shore as utility. Honorable mention, North Shore Conference, Vince Cameronese at catcher. Softball, honorable mention, North Shore Conference, Ivana Micic as a utility player. Girls soccer, honorable mention, North Shore Conference, Arden Riddle as a goalkeeper. Jordan Walton was recognized as an honorable mention academic all-state, which the criteria is minimum of 2 years on varsity and a minimum GPA of 3.85 and a minimum ACT score of 29. So the academic standards were high. On the boys' side for soccer, they waited until the end of the year, although boys' soccer's in the fall. They waited until the end of the year to release their all-state team. And Greg Dempsey on the boys' side for soccer was recognized as a first-team academic all-state selection. In golf, 3rd team All-North Shore Conference was Max Belke. The team, as a team, earned honorable mention academic all-state, and all teams to qualify must have at least a 3.25 cumulative GPA. Max was also academic all-state, as was Ryden Litke. And students who are submitted by the Golf Coaches Association of Wisconsin, they can only be recognized as all-state if they meet the following criteria: a cum GPA of at least 3.25, participation in at least 75% of their team's varsity matches, and are a sophomore, junior, or senior. So a lot of achievement from our young men and young ladies in athletics this spring. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Also want to congratulate John Long, Kennedy, and Woodview students and staff on being recognized by the Wisconsin RTI Center, so Response to Intervention Center, for their work towards fully implementing a system that leads to improved student outcomes. John Long and Kennedy were recognized at the silver level in behavior, and Woodview was recognized in the bronze level in behavior. Achievement of the behavior content areas helped increase consistency of instruction, enhances staff skills, proactively provide supports for all learners, and build stronger relationships. We are in the midst of Summer Learning Academy, and we have a total of 926 individual students enrolled in those 3 sessions, which is the most that we have ever seen since we've started tracking this data. So that's great. In the first session, they're gonna add up to more than 926 because some of them are taking multiple sessions. There's 490 students in our first session, 465 in our second, and 366 in our third. In speaking with Laura, one of the areas that we're seeing more students than ever before is some of our academic coursework. So that COVID dip that we saw with some of that learning loss, seeing our families really take advantage of some of those academic offerings that we're offering for our students to get caught back up. So you can see though that we're finishing session A that goes till this Thursday. Session B runs, we take the 4th of July week off. Session B runs from July 11th to the 21st. And session C runs from July 25 through August 4th. And if people are out there and still want to sign up for something, if there's space, they are able to still sign up for that. There's limited space in some of our sessions, but there is some space in a couple of those. A couple different things we want to bring up as well. We had Donnie Burhop passed away, a long-time custodian here in the district, worked for 45 years for us. I know Jamie and Rick both attended the funeral on Sunday, both worked with him for a number of years. I remember Donnie, I think my first interaction was him when we had our groundbreaking ceremony. Kara and I were talking about this, and he was here like an hour early, and we had that covering set up because the sun was beating down, and he was there early. And then I would see him every year at the Lions Chicken Roast playing music. And so passed away at the age of 87, and was just a vital part of our maintenance crew and of the community. So thoughts and prayers with his family. We want to recognize Kevin Deering. This is his last meeting tonight. As he moves on to a director position, and Kevin's been with us for 7 years, 6 as the principal at John Long. We appreciate all the accomplishments and recognitions that he's brought to our district and the work that he's done with students and staff, and we wish him well as he moves on to the Mequon-Thiensville School District. And then I have breaking news. Congratulations to senior Owen Prega on winning the National Skills USA competition held in Atlanta, Georgia last week. He competed in the Automotive Maintenance and Light Repair Demonstration Division, and as a result of his national championship, he received multiple Snap-on tool sets and $1,000 cash. You may recall that hearing that name because he and Clayton Kleckner also won the Atom competition earlier this year. That's a 2-person competition. He won the Atom competition. That did not have a nationals because they couldn't, it's held in New York and they couldn't get enough cars. So he was not able to go to that, but the Skills USA competition was in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is our 3rd national champion that we've had ever in our history. The other 2 came in 2003 and 2006. So after having a couple-year hiatus of having a national competition, Owen was able to go and compete. So kudos to instructor Nick Fullington, who as a former student also competed in these competitions, and to him and Owen on achieving these great accomplishments. Met with Nick this morning. We'll be inviting him and Owen to our July 25th board meeting, asking them to do, we have a couple pictures here, but then Owen will come, invite his parents, have him talk a little about the competition, have Nick from an instructor perspective. He shared this morning that some of the best professional development he's ever had, being able to interact with other instructors from across the nation. He was one of the younger ones there. And so for him to be there bringing a student who then wins the whole thing is really amazing, and it's great to have a national champion in our high school. So great for our district, the high school, and the whole tech ed department overall. So more information to come on that, but really excited for both Mr. Fullington and Owen on that great accomplishment. So, and with that, that is my report.
Any questions for Mr. Nelson? And Mr. Deering, I know you're back there. I can't see you behind this pillar, so you have to move one way or the other. There he is. Certainly want to, on behalf of the board, want to thank you for your 7 years of services and all that you have accomplished and all the things that you've done, the new things that you've brought forward, and for being relatable. I mean, one of the comments that I hear often from middle school parents is the announcements and some of the crazy antics and some of the things that you have done to be relatable to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I think that's extraordinarily important, and we appreciate all of your efforts and all of the work, the good work that you've done these 7 years, and wish you all the best as you continue in your career just down the road. Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. Any public comment this evening? I see one out there. Renee, please come on forward.
Hello, everyone. Happy summer. I'm reporting for the Grafton Education Foundation. Very pleased to announce that the check has been cut for about $55,000 in grants for the 2022 grant award winners. All sorts of great ideas. Some of the bigger ticket items were an embroidery machine for the high school and a water jet cutting system for the Fab Lab. So we're always excited to get those teachers submitting grants to us, and we have a committee that reviews them, but it's very good news for the district. The Night of Giving, which many of you were at, and we appreciate the board's support. I know many of you support it on a personal level, but we netted about $49,000 from that event, and again, we're very transparent. All the money we raised goes out in grants. So we'll anticipate next year's grant awards probably being in the same vicinity that they were this year, which is about that $50,000 range. We did have to make the decision to postpone the Color Blast to June of 2023. It had traditionally been a year-end event. Last year we moved it to a beginning of the school year event, but with the track renovation and so many unknowns, it just seemed like we were going to go back to our original idea to have it a celebration of the end of the year. So sometime within that last week of school, June of 2023, you can expect to see the Color Blast in support of the Grafton Education Foundation back with a new title sponsor. So that was another one of our challenges. We have someone on board, but they weren't able to commit this year. So those two factors just led us to postpone it for June of 2023. We do have a new president that was just voted in. So this will be my last meeting reporting to you as president. Amy Swenson, who has been on our board for several years, will be taking over the reins as president of the Grafton Education Foundation. And we will continue with a lot of the same activities and the monthly reports to you. So you can look forward to Amy leading the charge for all of us. And then we hope to see a lot of Grafton this Saturday. We will be in the Grafton Independence Parade. I'm told we have a Model T. I think it belongs to the neighbor of the Nelsons. So always a fun event to support Grafton, say thank you to all the Grafton folks that support us throughout the year. So we look forward to seeing a lot of you this Saturday on the streets of Grafton. Any other questions from us? Again, we just appreciate your support. I know the board does a annual donation, and we took that money, and that was part of the fishing charter package that was auctioned off during the Night of Giving. So thank you very much for helping us make that happen. We appreciate it. Have a good summer, guys.
Thank you, and thank you for your work and years with the GEF and for all of the work of the GEF. It's much appreciated. I received no emails, and I noticed that we've reverted back to the old language, or is this the language that's been in there? Yes, this is the language that's been, same language, okay. But I have received
I didn't
no
proof it in all
emails.
honesty, but like, yes,
Yeah, we've received no emails, or I have not.
I have not either.
School matters since the last meeting. Committee reports. We had a curriculum committee meeting on June 13th. I filled in for Carrie and had a very robust discussion of the textbook recommendations for physics, math, function statistics, and trigonometry, precision machining technology, all on the agenda tonight. We reviewed the Student Code of Conduct. That's an annual opportunity to take a look at each of the codes of conducts. Further discussion on security internet filtering. Got an update on the early college credit program and the Start College Now elements of our policy 2271. We reviewed the Universal Diagnostic Screener iRise that's being proposed this evening. We looked at the Inquiry Ed proposal, pilot K-5 social studies program, reviewed the Gifted and Talented RISE surveys. A busy evening with a lot of good discussion. Any questions? All right, personnel reports.
Yes, we have some resignations and some new hires that we would ask for board approval for. And the resignations, Cynthia Macwan, special education teacher at Grafton High School, Laura Stone, art teacher at Woodview Elementary School, and Kellen Wesson, math teacher at Grafton High School. And for our new hires, we'd ask for board approval for Jennifer Abmarinko, special education teacher, Kennedy Elementary, and Emily May, school counselor, Grafton High School. Informational only, we have in our resignations, we have Alex Eidman, who was a study hall lunch supervisor at Grafton High School, and Andrew Wagner, a paraprofessional at Grafton High School, who have resigned. Leslie Davis, a paraprofessional at Grafton High School, and Donna Janich, a paraprofessional at Woodview Elementary School, have retired from the district. And a change in position for Aaron Carlson, who last year was a study hall supervisor at Grafton High School, will be moving to Grafton High School paraprofessional position. So we'd ask for approval for the resignations as well as the new hires.
Okay, so we'll take them in order. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the resignations of Cynthia McWan, Laura Stone, and Kellen Wesson.
So moved.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And it passes. And now a motion to approve the new hires, Jennifer Abramiko and Emily May.
Second.
Is there any discussion regarding those new hires? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. In regards to the resignation retirements, those positions are posted, the paraprofessional positions.
They are,
We're
yes.
planning to go fully staffed at the start of the new year. We got some time.
Yep. We have, they've already posted for those if they're on weekend, and we're seeking applicants for them.
Okay, good. Item E, WIAA membership renewal.
This is an annual thing. If there's any questions, Mr. Moore is here to answer them, but this is an annual thing that we need the board to approve our registration into the WIA. There's no fee that goes with it. You can see the various sports that we offer, as well as any sports that we co-op. So we would ask the board to approve our registration to the WIA for next year.
There's the contract. Do we have a motion to approve the renewal as presented?
So moved.
Second. Any questions? Other than I don't understand after watching the Stanley Cup final last night how hockey can be non-contact. It is reflected as non-contact. This is their form. I just don't understand that, but.
That would be school contact. So it's not your host school.
Ah, okay. So it's not physicality. All right.
Because that's a good point, because then gymnastics is the co-op. He is the lead for that. That's why it says contact. So that would be funny. That gymnastics would be non-contact. It would be contact and hockey would be non-contact. That's a good catch.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, aye? Aye. Opposed? And that passes. Get another contract or resolution to approve regarding the Southeastern Wisconsin School Alliance, SWSA membership.
Yes, this is something that we do annually. We are part of the Southeastern Wisconsin School Alliance group, and they advocate on the behalf of public schools. We're able to attend their monthly meetings. They've been virtual. Now they're starting to do both in-person and virtual. We had a new director that was introduced at the last meeting. I was able to attend that in person. But they keep us updated on any changes. Terry Phillips is always sending something out as the director on various educational pieces. It's been helpful during the pandemic, as well as they advocate at the state legislature for the needs of our public schools and keeping us informed of any federal things as well that have impacts for us. So it's money that's very well spent, a lot of networking that occurs for our annual fee, and something that's been helpful for us in my time here, and we've been longtime members of it.
I would echo those comments, I mean, especially over the last couple of years relative to COVID. Their connections to Children's Hospital and other resources throughout the state are invaluable, I think, to us. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution regarding our membership in the Southeastern Wisconsin School Alliance.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye? Aye. Opposed? And that passes. And Blair, you are the designee. All right, perfect. Item G, 2022-2023 preliminary budget approval.
Yes, as a reminder, we started looking at revenues for the 22-23 budget back in February, finalized some personnel decisions in March and April, and then began looking at the budget as a whole in May at both finance and the regular board meeting. And we bring back the preliminary budget to you tonight for approval for use starting July 1st. And I will go through it again. Again, this will be similar to what we heard in May with some minor adjustments. So the assumptions are we have the wage increases, some of which have been approved, such as for educational assistants, support staff, teachers, for increases there. The 9.9% increase in health insurance premiums, which we still continue to use, even though we will not be renewing with WEA in January. This also includes a teacher FTE increase of 5.66, that new hires and newly benefit eligible staff will pick family benefits, that increased private school tuition will be, the increase would be in the neighborhood of $145,000, and that other budgets around the district would be flat. This is a 3.3% increase in our expenditures. For revenue, we're assuming that we will have a drop in our revenue limit, the spendable portion of it, due to the loss of a couple of exemptions, membership amount being frozen, and a flat 3-year membership average. We are using new projections and are somewhat optimistic that there will be increases in special ed aid overall. It's stayed within that 28, 27, 29% range, but now there are projections out there that make it look like it could be above that 30% threshold. So we could see some additional funds with special ed aid next year. Per pupil aid would be flat. We would have the increased private school tuition levy exemption. We'd have new revenue in the form of the Zahn field lease. We would also have ESSER funds available in one form or another to help us balance that budget. This would again be a 3.7% increase overall of revenue. Ongoing spendable revenue would be a fairly small amount, relatively flat. So again, looking at some of those factors, that revenue limit per member freeze, going into 22-23, that'll be the 3rd year in a row that we are allowed to spend the same amount of money per member. And then looking forward to what might happen depending on what our membership looks like. If it stays flat compared to last year, we would lose the exemptions from 21-22, those 2 exemptions on the left, in the left column of the 21,000. Each roughly, those would fall off. And so we would have a lower revenue limit. However, if we have an increase in membership, example on the right there is if it went up 10, we would see increased revenue limit of about $108,000 or so due to getting more, the additional $10,850 per member. If our membership drops, 3-year average drops by 10, then that initial calculation would be lower by about $108,000, but we would get the hold harmless, which would bring us back up to last year's initial calculation, and then another $108,000 would be added on top of that for the declining enrollment exemption. Either way, we'd have more revenue. Obviously, we'd prefer to have our membership go up 10 because then that would stay on, that wouldn't be falling off the next year's revenue limit calculation. Looking at the private school choice tax levy across Wisconsin, the participation in the program increases each year as students entering kindergarten, 1st grade, and 9th grade can participate in the program even if they haven't attended public school in the past. So across the state, every year, the participation increases and the dollar amount that is added on top of the levy so that we can then divert our state aid to that program. It does go up, so we are anticipating an increase next year. Our Fund 27 revenue comes in the form of federal grants and Medicaid. We also receive special ed aid. We're reimbursed the following year. So the federal grants will be reimbursed for expenditures we make that year. The state special ed aid is a reimbursement for prior year eligible expenses. I referenced that earlier, that we might see an increase. We are anticipating at least a small increase compared to last year in the aid that would be coming in, but it still is, relative to the nation, a very small reimbursement percentage for what we spend in special education. As you can see, the lion's share of what we use to cover the cost of special education comes from a transfer from Fund 10, estimated to be over 60% of the cost. Looking at the overall budget and considerations that went into it, obviously we had to deal with inflationary pressures, both from salaries, benefits, as well as just the cost of running schools. Inflation being over 8% right now, we were able to limit the expenditure increases to just 3.7%, all while continuing to increase teacher FTE to meet student need and putting together compensation packages to help us attract and retain our quality staff. This all coming while there's no increase in spendable revenue from the state now for the second consecutive year next year. We will, because of that, and as suggested by the legislature, we'll be using available ESSER funds to balance the budget next year. Some help in the budget as we move forward after tonight into summer and into the fall will be that potential membership change that I talked about. That would provide additional revenue. We could have our health insurance renewal come in below the 9.9%, which would potentially reduce our expenditures and help get closer to a more balanced budget. And then we could have, as we onboard more of our new employees, anytime they don't pick the family benefits, that is a savings to the district. So as we look at our ESSER funding and how we're going to move forward with claiming available ESSER funds, we still have about $500,000 of ESSER 2 and the $1.6 million of ESSER 3 that we've discussed over the past 6 months and how we're going to spend that. So in terms of claiming those funds, two big strategies with that. One would be to maximize future revenue. So we're going to want to avoid claiming using ESSER funds to cover the costs of costs that are eligible for special ed aid. For example, cross-categorical teachers, psychs. If you were to claim against them, then you're not going to be reimbursed that 30% the following year. So we'll actually be reducing our special ed aid if we do that. So we're going to want to avoid that, for one. Second strategy is minimizing a negative impact to property taxes. I've seen an increase in property taxes because of the way we claim ESSER. So in this current year, as we consider claiming ESSER funds to cover current year costs, we'll want to target that secondary cost ceiling. We still are making debt and made debt payments this year, so we can certainly claim whatever ESSER money we have available and decrease our shared cost, knowing that up into that secondary cost ceiling, we're positively aided. What we spend over and above that secondary cost ceiling causes us to lose aid. So we can bring our shared costs down closer to that secondary cost ceiling, potentially by claiming all available ESSER funds this year. Next year, we want to be close to that secondary cost ceiling. We do not have debt payments, which are a shared cost, next year, and projections have us relatively close to that secondary cost ceiling next year, meaning we wouldn't necessarily want to do any ESSER claiming next year because that could actually reduce state aid for that following year. And then in 22-23, we are somewhat protected as we make much larger debt payments because we're paying every other year. We are protected by the equalization aid hold harmless provision. So wanted to point that out again, as we've talked about at numerous meetings, that we will be strategizing how we claim ESSER funds to ensure we don't reduce future revenues and we don't increase future property taxes. As we move forward, we're going to be obviously taking a very interested look, as we do at every biennial budget, but especially the 22-25 biennial budget. There will be a fiscal cliff coming for districts, and there's been discussion that the state will step up and will provide additional funds to make up for the fact that the revenue per limit has been frozen for 2 years, even though the cost of educating students has risen extensively. And I'll point out that we do have ESSER funds available. In fact, we are in a fairly good situation in that we are able to use next year, whether it's ESSER funds that have put in a special fund balance or whether actually claiming it next year, but we are going to be able to use a portion of our ESSER funds next year to balance the budget. As you know, we've talked about the fact that some districts would, and we know that some districts are going to use all of their ESSER funds next year, and that will not even be enough to balance their budget. They'll already have to dip into fund balance that next year after using up all their ESSER funds. We will have ESSER funds available next year and the following year to help stabilize our revenue. We'll take a look at what that biennial budget holds for us as we head into, as we find ourselves here a year from now. And then as a reminder, we do have $4.8 million in fund balance, including $1.1 million that is above that 15% fund balance ratio as required by board policy. All those items could be used to avoid what some districts might have, which is hitting that fiscal cliff and having to make some severe reductions to staff. We can avoid that situation and try and feather in a smooth landing if the state doesn't come through in that biennial budget. And it's also been put out there as this last budget was passed, that districts do have the option of an operating referendum if these other pieces aren't going to be there for us. So those are some of the different pieces that we will have options for looking at future budgets. After we pass this tonight, for use starting in July, we will have additional steps before we finalize the budget. In September, we will have the annual meeting, present the budget at that annual meeting, and then we will get final budget information in the month of October and approve that budget at the board meeting in October. Any questions, thoughts, or comments?
There was no timeline that were given to use the ESSER funds, correct?
There is. So ESSER funds must be claimed. ESSER 3 needs to be claimed by 23-24. So we've basically got a couple of years to use it and then a wiggle room of a few months.
Okay.
But that for us, and that's to claim it, right? So once we claim it, so if we were to claim it this current year and put it into a special dedicated fund balance, then we've claimed it. We don't need to actually use the fund balance portion of it. It's a matter of claiming it by that date.
But you have to claim it the same year you're using it, correct?
We claim it whenever you have eligible expenses. For example, we may claim it all this year using eligible expenses as outlined in the grant. Then that would make the money available, those funds available, for use in a special fund balance that would help us from spending down our regular fund balance.
Okay.
But as long as it's claimed by September of 24, 25.
Okay.
Questions? All right. ESSER 3 claiming strategies are consistent with the requirements of the grant program?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, we've triple checked that.
Yep, we would put in a budget. It would be approved by DPI, that all of our expenses are in fact eligible, and then that would bring the revenue in. So it gets reviewed by DPI.
Okay. Other questions? Well, I certainly want to thank you for the work that has gone into putting this budget together. I think you hit the highlights and the salient points. I mean, in a challenging time from an economic perspective, an increase in spend that is half of generally what inflation runs at, in addition, hiring almost 6 new heads to support and enhance existing programs, and augmenting wages, I guess is a way to say it, to ensure that we have the right strategies in place for both recruitment and retention. Doing that with regard to the ESSER funds, but also with regard to the fiscal responsibility that has gone into the development of a fund balance that is almost $5 million. Puts us in a good position for this year and to perhaps weather storms that are still lurking out there. So I want to thank you and the administrative team and all those that had a hand in putting this budget together. With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve the budget as presented. Last chance for questions. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed, and it passes. Thank you, Topher. Cyber insurance renewal.
All right, so bringing that last piece, sort of cleaning up our insurance renewal that we did the lion's share of, approved the lion's share of at the last board meeting. We do have our cyber insurance renewal quote. I had mentioned that it would go up potentially 50% to almost to 100% potentially. It did come in around a 50% increase with our cyber insurance. And so it's being brought forward tonight to get that approved and in place for July 1st.
Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the cyber insurance renewal premium of $14,612 as presented.
So moved.
Have a second? Any questions? Which line item is that in? Is that in, do you know? Because when I look at the insurance lines in total, they go down, or
Yes, and that is, so some of the way our insurance is structured can create situations where we have to move it between those different budget lines. The cyber insurance would end up going, as my last recollection, would go into that, I believe it's the liability
and errors and
cyber
omissions.
liability.
Okay,
So
right.
we've adjusted that from year to year, depending on how they structure some of the products that we've purchased. That's why
Okay.
you see some variation.
All right. All those in favor of the motion, aye? Aye. Opposed? And it passes. Thank you. Textbook adoptions.
Good evening. Got 3 textbooks adoptions to bring forward for approval tonight. The curriculum committee, we had our teacher teams present this information to you. However, we've moved to bringing just the adoption process from curriculum to this team through our memo, as well as any other questions that hopefully I can answer. Just a review quickly of that process, I work with our departments as well as Scott to prioritize our need for new textbooks, one of those being, when was the last time that copyright was looked at? And so we've gotten 3 to present to you, the first one being physics. That physics team looked at their current book, which was copyright of 2009, and identified that as an area of focus to start to look at new resources. A team of Melissa Stouty, Dan Getz, and Alyssa looked through those textbooks and came to the conclusion that really they needed 2 parts to really push forward that physics curriculum. And that's through the textbook Inspire Physics, as well as a tool called Pivot, which provides interactive videos for labs, through Dan Getz's YouTube presentation, he was able to demonstrate that some of those labs present tools, resources that really are more than his budget in itself. So some of the tools that we're able to use through Pivot, he's excited about that. So that comes as a component of a per student cost of roughly $4.50 for the Pivot side. And then their hardcover textbooks come at a cost of $5,947. They did ask for 10 digital licenses, not thinking they needed one-to-one digital licenses. However, that could be used for students that need voice to text through that process. So twofold, the other component of our physics textbook adoption process is a modeling instruction curriculum resources that the teachers have asked for, and that's just a small cost of, I believe, $30 per teacher, with a total of being, total cost of the physics textbook adoption being $6,347.50. At the curriculum committee, I believe, Paul, you had asked about just Canvas integration in itself, that some of the concerns that our teachers look at is how does this textbook integrate with our system of Canvas? And I reached out to Jen Griffith and she said, over the last number of years, we've had very few textbook companies that don't work with us or don't create a link from the textbook resource to Canvas, and she could only think of one, and that was through our social studies adoption of medieval studies, where they still provide a link, but that link takes them to an external website. That's the one example. Everything else has been able to be embedded in Canvas, including this physics textbook adoption. So I'd be seeking approval for that after I take any questions.
Then I would entertain a motion to approve the team's recommendation regarding Inspire Physics, Pivot, and the Modeling Instruction Curriculum Resource.
So moved. Second.
Any final questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And it passes.
Thank you. Our next is FST, which is Function, Statistics, and Trigonometry. This copyright goes back to 2001. It is also connected to a course we brought to you in the fall through new courses and the course alignment with MATC and that dual credit. This textbook that they've decided upon as a team of Mike Britker and Kellen Wesson is called College Algebra and Trigonometry, and they felt it aligned very closely to the structure of the course as well as the standards that are being taught. The other connection that they saw is My Math Lab, which is the digital tool connected to that textbook, really aligned well with assessments and the common formative assessments they've been using in that course, and it replaces Math Excel, which was the previous digital tool that was used for FST. And this, again, is a significant update in copyright. It goes from 2001 to 2021 and comes at a cost of almost $10,000. Just as an update, I had emailed the board this afternoon that there is a slight change from the curriculum committee based on course. The teacher of the course, originally the thought was it could be a completely digital resource, the 6-year license, digital being $5,099. However, based on some LBC work that our our math teams are doing, there was a request to have one set of classroom books, and that would be 20 additional hardcover books. At a rough estimate, we've reached out to Savas and around $4,500 for those 20 textbooks. So the course of 6 years, a total cost of $9,599.
Okay, then I'd entertain a motion to approve the recommendation regarding the textbook selection for math, function, statistics, and trigonometry as presented.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Keep going.
Thank you. Our final one is, we're going back to the 80s. This textbook copyright is from 1984. We're coming into the new millennium, I guess. Metal Fabrications, PLTW, Computer Integrated Manufacturing, Technology, Engineering. Mike Dodge was able to really talk to the components of Cengage in this particular textbook on what it can do for some NIMS certification and getting our students certified, and really pushing on our district goal of having our students leave Grafton High School certified or really college and in this case career ready. Mike Dodge felt comfortable that this textbook could be integrated into a number of courses. So while this process was driven by machining and that textbook, obviously it's changed over the years with our PLTW engineering components, and so he's excited about this. He's used Cengage. He brought Cengage to you as a tool in a previous textbook adoption in the last 2 years through welding, so this is really integrated well, and he's seen some growth with that tool digitally with his students, so he felt comfortable and excited about this tool and moving forward with a bundle of 30. That 30 is kind of a combination of those courses and looking at the average number of students in those courses over the last few years. So all in total, $5,237 for textbooks and that digital access for 6 years.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to approve the recommendation for metal fabrication project Lead the Way, computer integrated manufacturing and technology and engineering 9 textbook as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed, and it passes. Again, thanks to all of the teams that worked on updating and bringing this new curriculum to us for consideration this evening.
Thank you. I'll stay here. So the next component I'd like to talk to you about is Universal Diagnostic Screener, information related to iReady. So we spoke at length at our curriculum committee about iReady and really that shift on how we're using internal data, how we're using an internal assessment system to drive instruction. We bring forth forward data. You see our school report card data each and every year, but this is really connected to our internal data review process and what we can do. So So the system we've been using since 2004 is MAP. You've heard a lot of us share about our MAP goals, whether it's through our building goals, our district goals, and we can also track our student achievement as well as student growth through MAP. We've used it in a number of ways in a number of grade levels. 7 years ago, we were using it at the kindergarten and first grade level. We've used it with selective students in 11th grade, but really it's a great tool. It's been a great tool to measure achievement and individual student growth. We've used it as a college and career ready predictor. You've also seen us use it as a forward predictor that we will be able to, we've been able to provide that MAP assessment in the fall or winter, and it tells us a percentage of students that are projected to be advanced or proficient in forward. That's been a great tool for us. We've also used it for course selection as students move through our system from 5th to 6th grade and possibly even in 8th to 9th grade as we think about college or algebra readiness. And we've also used it for RISE placement and students determining that top 1% to 2% for RISE programming. Since 2004, the state itself has shifted and changed its standards that it's using, and MAP has done a little bit of that. So MAP is currently aligned to the Common Core standards, and so as we think about how our students do within MAP, we can predict how they're doing on the Common Core standards. One thing that really pushed this process, you've heard me talk a lot this year about the K-8 ELA adoption process, really looking at our reading data to determine how do we get better? How can we improve our reading scores and really shore up maybe some areas that we're struggling with, that we're seeing students be really successful in math, but we're seeing different numbers in ELA. And so that team has really looked at data, and one thing that we want to be able to do is look at data in new ways. And so we started talking about MAP, and does MAP inform our instruction? One thing that I heard teachers say a lot through this process as we've looked at ELA data and as we've looked at MAP is that we do MAP. And we certainly do. We do it in fall, winter, spring. We also do it in winter, spring. We've changed that. But oftentimes I don't hear them say we use MAP. So using that data to inform instruction has really been the big push of this team. The other side of it is in kindergarten and first grade, using a diagnostic screener or a universal screener in the area of math to look for gaps in success. While we know math is a strength in our system, according to forward data, we would also like to identify areas that we can push in kindergarten and first grade. So on April 14th, a team of teachers in K through 8 came together to look at different tools that we could possibly adopt as a new screening tool in replacement of MAP. We talked about MAP as one of our options. We also talked about STAR, and we talked about iReady. We used a metric system tied to our standards-based teaching and learning systems on how we analyze data, what assessments we use, what standards we use, and we really came to the final conclusion that iReady was our top tool. We followed up with a couple districts that are using iReady. We wanted to hear their word for it. One of those districts being Wisconsin Dells and another district being Port Washington. And we were blown away with some of the ways that teachers were able to use that data in the moment. And so our middle school team really latched on to some things that were happening in Wisconsin Dells, that they use this tool as a university diagnostic screener to determine where students are based on standards. And then they also have an individualized program or digital computer platform that students can focus on their areas of need and push on those levels, those standards that they might need more work on. But it's also a way for students to extend their learning and push on some of our GT and our enrichment students. 2022, 2023 is forward. So this coming spring's forward assessment will be aligned to the Wisconsin ELA standards. MAP has not done so. They have not aligned those standards within their assessment to that. So that was the other driving force. And we do know that iReady will have that. iReady will also have components where students can take a specific test on a specific standard after they take that diagnostic, and it will say, are they on target for this forward exam for this Wisconsin standard? We're excited about that because we've talked to you a lot about common formative assessments that we've created, and we feel confident that those are great measures, but now we have another fidelity check through iReady to check on those standards. Our PLC teams really identified that tighter need for looking at an assessment and using the assessment to drive instruction the very next day, and we're excited that iReady will do that. You can see on the screen, it will continue to offer the same things that we've been able to share with you from MAP. We'll be able to tell you a national norm or a national percentile. We'll also be able to tell you a projected score. So we're not going to lose those components by moving to iReady. I'll still be able to share with you cohort data as it projects students to forward proficiency. And it'll also give us a national norm like we've been able to do to determine course placement and growth as well. Lastly, it would also provide a Lexile score for a reading component to help students and teachers know where their students are from a reading level. This is all one assessment done in the fall, winter, spring, so we know we can't judge it all on that one assessment and one moment, but we do know that this tool is a little bit more adaptive. It'll continue to be adaptive like MAP, but one of the things we heard from Wisconsin Dells and Port Washington is the assessment looks more like forward. It's not a multiple choice test. We have students manipulating and moving things, and more realistic approach to the assessment like forward. We're excited about it. We've done a little bit of training. We brought an iReady team in to talk about some initial thoughts that our teachers could start looking at. We've provided videos for teachers to start looking at through the summer through their LVC work, and we've also given some tools for them to work on. Planning and preparation. The other thing that iReady has been able to do for teachers, or will be able to do for teachers, is for a specific standard that a group of students might be struggling on, it will also provide an instructional tool or a lesson that they could provide within that small group structure. So as much as it is a diagnostic tool to determine where we are as a system, it's going to give teacher tools for them to inform instruction, and then at the middle school, we'll also provide a differentiated, individualized platform to push students. I brought Lexia Core 5 as a tool at the elementary level for reading. We see this as a middle school tool for reading as well as math. I'll take questions on iReady before I go to the next and final slide. Information only, but something we're really excited about from a data perspective and to inform instruction.
So no, we talked about the implementation plan. So the question that has come to, how will we measure the effectiveness of this new diagnostic tool? At what periods, and you know, how can we make sure that it's hitting its intended marks based upon the assessment that we've done so far?
So we'll be in year one, we'll be using it fall, winter, spring. And then at the middle school, based
That
on
would be
that.
next year, 2022,
Yep, 22,
2023.
23. And based on that fall score, we'll be able to set up, at least at the middle school, where we're focusing that differentiated approach, we'll be able to set forth a plan for students to do individual work in reading and math. And one thing that we noticed this year, for example, our fifth graders last year scored really well on forward in the area of math. And then when we took the MAP assessment in winter, we noticed a drop of 30 to 40%, as you've seen through our cohort data that we've seen. What this will be able to provide us is the data right away in the fall on how much did we have in summer slide, as well as what specific standards students can work on. So while IM in the area of math is focusing on standards, this will add another layer of forward state standards for instruction. And we'll be able to check in along the way. We can give additional common formative assessments through iReady or use our current common formative assessments to see how our students doing. We won't be waiting till winter to do that fidelity check. We'll be checking right away in the fall.
So that'll give us an indication of its effectiveness at the student level.
Mhm.
How do we roll that up into its effectiveness as a diagnostic tool district-wide? Is that just a function of the data retreats year over year and what our scores look like in total? I mean, I get at the individual level,
Sure.
at the
I get what
student
you're saying,
level, but as a broad-based tool that's replacing a broad-based tool for good reason, how do we know that it's working?
One thing MAP does do is provide a proficiency advanced projection. And we've seen some small gaps or small, especially at the middle school where MAP is telling us this, and including MAP in the spring tells us one thing and forward, which was taken 2 weeks prior, tells us something different. So this is another tool that will give us projections and we'll look at how close those are, and that's something we can track over time as well.
And that's something we met today to talk about our data retreat coming up in July, because we're getting preliminary data now, and we are looking at what did MAP say as a predicted forward score, what was the actual forward score, what did it say in the fall, what did it say in the spring, what do other assessments that we have, whether it's F&P at second grade, that's telling us one thing, and you know we have this high number of second graders that are successful at grade level, and then in third grade we aren't seeing that same number. So is the forward test wrong in third grade? Is the F&P wrong in second grade? Right? So that's what we're looking at, those pieces. How is this tool going to really show us exactly that predictor be accurate?
Okay.
And a more quick check to be able to do that. And we even have some data interventions that we've used in the winter that when we saw that data that we were able to utilize to sort of accelerate some of the learning, and we want to see more growth. But it was beneficial to see at least some of those interventions. And we talked about that today. Michael was meeting with the two elementary principals, talking about the levers that we did utilize that raised student learning on the forward exam, which ones worked and which ones did we try that we should not try again, we should try something else to continue moving student growth forward.
Okay.
We're really excited for the data retreat. Got good data to share with you as well as some areas of growth.
So, but MAP will still be used at the elementary level?
Nope.
No.
So K-8, it'll be a diagnostic screener given fall, winter, spring.
Okay.
Kindergarten, we won't do it in fall, I should say. 1-8, we'll do it. And then the individualized differentiated tool,
That's the 6th.
just 6-8. We'll continue to use Lexia Core 5 for reading in elementary, and we'll also use Zern as a digital tool for math in elementary, with future years possibly moving to iReady as a system-wide. But also knowing that some of those things run its course, and we want students to be engaged within the tool, but we just may see this more often turning around. Yeah.
All right.
My last quick slide, just wanted to provide one quick update on May 12th. The state DPI finally announced their next universal screening tool. They'll be replacing ACT Aspire for 9th and 10th grade with the PreACT Secure beginning in 22-23. So I'm working with Scott on ways that we can prepare our students and also provide some before fall screening tools and getting some data like we have through MAP and next year iReady that we'll be able to use from that ACT perspective. So a little bit different, a little bit change in the name, but really will be a tool to help prepare our students for the ACT as juniors. So I'm working with Scott, we worked with a team to look at different diagnostic screeners for ACT as well. So we've been waiting a long time for that one.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item K, gift reports.
Yes, we have a number of reports that we would ask the board to approve. First being from Grafton Junior Hoops on the boys' side. Andy Kavoya is the contact for that, and they are donating Dr. Dish basketball shooting machine valued at $6,000, so it's a restricted gift for GHS basketball. Andy Wizzardi has a restricted gift for golf. He's donating his JV2 golf stipend of $1,795 to the golf team. You heard earlier talking about the GHS Automotive for Skills. And one of the reasons that we were able to send our student and instructor to Atlanta was because of some of these donations. So the Amato Corporation, with Corey Garbish as the contact person, donated $3,000 for the Skills USA National Competition. Jennifer Mell donated $300 for the GHS Automotive Skills USA. Five Corners Dodge, with Roman Weniger being the contact person, donated $300 for Skills USA. And that was the end of the Skills USA donations. And then for restricted gift for Grafton football, for their mulch fundraiser, we had Quasar Manzoor from the Quasar Gems and Jewelry donating $5,000 for the mulch fundraiser. Sean and Carly Deere donated $300 for the mulch fundraiser. Aaron Peterson donated $300 for the mulch fundraiser for Grafton football. Jerry and Deidre Faust donated $300 for the mulch fundraiser, and Angel Stone also donated $300 for the mulch fundraiser for the Grafton football program.
Many excellent donations that are much appreciated, so I'd entertain a motion to accept with many thanks those donations this evening as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes again with our many thanks that I'm certain that you'll take care of or already have.
We will send, now that you've approved it, we will send a note of thanks to each of these individuals and businesses, and I know there's one or two more still coming for the Skills USA to cover that I think it was $6,000 cost that went with that trip for Owen and Mr. Fullington. But yes, we will send a note of appreciation on behalf of the board.
Excellent, thank you. All right, then I would entertain a motion for the Board of Education to convene into closed session to consider administrative compensation and conduct public business regarding the transportation contract in which competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. This is in accordance with Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, Section 1, Parts C and E. Do I have a motion to convene into closed?
So moved.
Second.
Take a voice vote. Blair, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. We are in closed. Thank you.